Today, we continue the story of Wrong Turn 4. The story takes place in a sanatorium in West Virginia, where 182 patients are held, most of whom are deformed due to inbreeding, often referred to as cannibals in this series. One day, the director brings a woman to the facility. While observing the patients, she is suddenly grabbed by the hair by a cannibal. Fortunately, it turns out to be a false alarm, but her hairpin falls into the hands of the cannibal. The director then introduces her to the most dangerous individuals in the hospital. They are three brothers, very intelligent and extremely brutal. The youngest, Three Finger, has eaten two of his own fingers. One eye has eaten his own eye. Sawtooth has sharpened his teeth to be razor sharp. The woman asks if they don't feel pain, and the director responds that this is the subject of their research. Due to genetic mutations, they suffer from congenital insensitivity to pain. This condition drives them into violent madness. After explaining this, the two leave. After they leave, the cannibal holding the hairpin tries to pry open the prison door but struggles for a long time without success. He then throws the hairpin to the three brothers next door. Three Finger, being very clever, manages to open the door after some manipulation. The guard outside hears noises coming from the cell and prepares to open the door to check. When he enters, the three brothers ambush him from behind, viciously attacking and killing the guard. They then head to the control room and press the switch, releasing all the cannibals in the facility. Chaos erupts within the sanatorium. Cannibals, mixed with the mentally ill, take full control of the place. They strap the woman to an operating table and perform electrotherapy on her head. Outside, the scene is quite pleasant, with people dancing and even engaging in role play. The worst fate befalls the director, who is bound by barbed wire by the three brothers. They use an elevator to hoist him up. Time fast forwards to 30 years later. A group of college students is preparing to go skiing in a snowy mountain. The female lead, Kenya, tells the group that Bridget has already booked a cabin and is waiting for them. The group heads to the cabin, but along the way, Kenya realizes they seem to be lost, and a snowstorm will hit in a few minutes. Kyle, one of the group, says he knows the way, as he and Bridget used to come here often. Trust me, if we just climb over that mountain, we'll reach the station. The group reluctantly agrees to follow him, unknowingly heading toward a deadly path. It soon becomes dark, and under Kyle's guidance, the group loses their way. Kenya suggests they should go back to their previous spot and head in another direction, but the storm has already covered the tracks completely. Just when they are at a loss, one of the female students spots a tall building in the distance. They decide to head towards it to temporarily take shelter from the storm and find their way once it passes. This building is the same sanatorium that housed the cannibals 30 years ago. Once inside, they find the house very warm, as if someone is living there. They don't yet realize the gravity of the situation. They take off their clothes to warm up. Kenya asks the boys to go find some more fuel to increase the warmth of the room. The girls, meanwhile, rest and try to use their phones to contact Bridget. However, when they check their phones, they find there is no signal, so they reluctantly give up. The group continues chatting and laughing, already forgetting about being lost. Soon, the boys return with some wood. Kyle sits down and apologizes to the group, not expecting things to turn out so badly. Fortunately, no one is hurt. Meanwhile, Vincent comments on how strange it feels to be in such a large hospital. With nothing to do, they decide to go explore the hospital. Daniel agrees that the idea is great, so Kenya leads the group of 6 inside, while the others stay outside to prepare dinner. Before long, they find the director's office and discover a rare bottle of brandy from 30 years ago. Without thinking much, they open it and drink it. Daniel, meanwhile, finds a file on the patients and is both terrified and intrigued by the description of the cannibals. He takes the file back to study later. What they don't know is that the 3 cannibal brothers, carrying Bridget's corpse, have returned to the sanatorium. They never left, treating the place as their home. After the group returns, Vincent and Jenna ask Kenya if they can find a room to sleep in. While searching, Kenya is startled when a shadow flickers in front of them. She senses there might be other people in the hospital and asks Vincent to check ahead. However, as soon as he enters, loud growls are heard. Kenya, about to flee, is stopped by Jenna, who insists on going inside to check. Inside, they discover that Vincent was just playing a prank, scaring the two of them out of their wits. They yell at Vincent for his joke. When they return, a figure steps out of the shadows watching them. Kenya, furious, demands that Vincent make amends. As an apology, he decides to find something like a generator to light up the hospital. Sure enough, Vincent finds the generator and manages to turn on the lights. Seeing this, Kenya forgives him. And now that they have light, the group decides to find a room to party, dancing and drinking, enjoying themselves. Little do they know, behind the glass, One Eye is watching everything. The group then races around the hospital in wheelchairs. They bring the chairs to the auditorium, where Kenya finds a VHS tape on the floor. Thinking it's a movie, she asks Daniel to play it on the projector. But when they see the footage, they are horrified. The video shows the director's meticulous care for the cannibals, and Lauren recalls a story her brother told her. In West Virginia, there is a group of cannibals whose faces are deformed due to constant inbreeding. The patients held here are probably those people. Furthermore, they eat humans. Kenya dismisses it as just an urban legend and insists there's no need to take it seriously. After watching the video, they all return to their rooms to sleep. Late at night, Vincent can't sleep and decides to go explore the place further. Outside, he sees someone sitting behind glass. Recognizing the clothes, he realizes it's Bridget. He calls out to him, but he doesn't respond. When he touches him, he discovers he's already dead. Realizing something is wrong, he turns to run, but Sawtooth blocks his way and stabs him in the head with a sharp spike. By morning, the blizzard continues outside. Jenna notices that Vincent hasn't returned and asks the others if they've seen him, but no one knows. They find that Vincent's luggage has disappeared. Kyle suspects that Vincent took it, and since it's still snowing outside, the group decides to split up. One group will search downstairs, and the other will search upstairs, hoping to find Vincent, pack up, and leave. They agree to meet in half an hour in the projection room. Kenya, Kyle, Jenna, and another girl form one group. They reach the basement and find a room filled with torture devices. Kyle naively plays with them, not realizing the severity of the situation. In order to find Vincent faster, they go to the room where the cannibals were kept. Meanwhile, the other group of 4 discovers bloodstains on the upstairs glass and thinks they might be Vincent's. Kenya and her group decide that searching all these rooms together is too inefficient, so they split up to search. Jenna arrives at the kitchen and sees Sawtooth disassembling Bridget. Terrified, she hides and luckily isn't discovered, escaping the room. The other 4 find the bloodstains and tell the group, suggesting that someone else might still be living here. Jenna suddenly rushes in, shouting that someone is trying to kill them. Just then, a package is thrown toward them. Kenya immediately recognizes it as Bridget's clothes. She realizes something is wrong and anxiously opens the package, finding Bridget's head inside. The group screams in terror. In a sudden turn of events, a chain falls from above and wraps around Jenna, pulling her into the air. Kyle rushes to help, but as the cannibal pulls from above and Kyle pulls from below, Kyle accidentally decapitates the blonde girl. The group is now completely panicked. Forgetting about the storm outside, they hop on their motorcycles and try to leave, but the motorcycle won't start, and Daniel suggests they might as well go inside and find a safe place to protect themselves. Lauren pulls out a down jacket from her bag. Being the best skier, she decides to ski down the mountain to call for help, as it seems to be the only option. The remaining group heads to the director's office, where they find reinforced locks on the door, thinking it might withstand any attack. Now the only thing left to do is find some weapons to defend themselves. Kyle remembers the basement room filled with torture devices, where there are plenty of knives and saws. The girl next to them said, "We should quietly wait for rescue here." Kyle replied, "Stay out of the men's business," then tried to drag Daniel along, but Daniel wasn't foolish. If they went out, it would be a death sentence. So Kyle began to pressure him. This is the critical moment. A real man should step up. Reluctantly, Daniel agreed, and they decided Kyle, Daniel, and Sarah would go together. Soon they reached the basement. Suddenly, Three Finger, holding an axe, chased after them. The group quickly turned around and ran, cornered into the torture room. They turned off the lights and hid. Three Finger passed by but didn't notice them. Meanwhile, outside, Kenya heard a knock on the door. She thought it was her teammates returning and pressed her ear to the door. Suddenly, an electric drill broke through the door. One Eye grabbed Kenya by the hair. A girl nearby grabbed a screwdriver and injured One Eye, rescuing Kenya. In the basement, Kyle and Sarah grabbed 2 small knives and left. Daniel was distracted by a large axe. After hesitating for a moment, he took the axe, but by then, the others had already disappeared. Halfway down, he was ambushed and captured by Sawtooth. When Kyle and Sarah returned, they noticed Daniel was missing. Kyle immediately went to look for him. Meanwhile, the three cannibals had tied Daniel to a table. They didn't kill him immediately, but heated some oil and sliced some vegetables, preparing to deep fry him. Kenya heard Daniel's cries for help and wanted to rescue him, but the other girl suggested, "This might be a trap. They could be luring us in with Daniel." A disagreement broke out among them. Hearing Daniel's continuous cries, they decided to vote. The majority ruled, and the only one who wanted to stay behind was her. Reluctantly, she agreed. Meanwhile, Daniel was being tortured and barely recognizable. The three cannibals ate eagerly. They reached the door and let Kyle go in to assess the situation. The sight nearly made him throw up. After Kyle left, Three Finger wanted a piece of kidney, but in a careless move, he ended up killing Daniel. When Kyle came back, he told the others what had happened inside. There were three cannibals, a big one and two smaller ones. After some brainstorming, Kenya came up with a plan. One girl would sneak to the door of the cell. The rest would block them from the kitchen, forcing the three brothers to flee toward the cell. They quickly set to work. Kyle launched a surprise attack with a fire extinguisher, catching the three brothers off guard. The three of them then charged in with knives. The girl at the corner used an oil lamp to block the way, pushing them toward the right direction. The three brothers, seeing the determined group, were finally cornered in the cell. The group decided to deal with them, but Kenya objected. "We should lock them up and take turns guarding them until help arrives, then hand them over to the police." Reluctantly, they agreed, while Lauren, who had gone out for help, was freezing outside in the snow. Even the last bit of her fire had been extinguished by the snow. Back to Kenya's group, they wanted to start the motorcycle and escape, so they left Kyle to guard the door while the others went to search. The cell was the same one where the cannibals had been kept 30 years ago. Three Finger picked up the hairpin and, while Kyle was asleep, secretly unlocked the door. Once out, he quickly dealt with Kyle. After a while, Kenya was preparing to switch with Kyle, but when she found the three cannibals and Kyle were both gone, she immediately returned to the director's office to report the situation. Sarah suspected that Kyle had burned the three brothers, but then thought it didn't make sense. If Kyle had burned them, how could he have disappeared? Suddenly, a figure wearing a sack appeared outside the door. Kenya recognized it and realized it was likely the smallest of the cannibals. Seeing he was unarmed, they rushed outside to deal with him, increasing their chances of survival. They attacked him, and when they opened the sack, they found it was Kyle. This revealed that the cannibals weren't clever, but the group was too foolish. At that moment, mocking laughter echoed around them. They turned and fled. The three brothers emerged with chainsaws, and they ran upstairs, discovering the stolen down jackets. Now, they wouldn't freeze to death outside. They found a window they could escape through, but the snow had blocked the opening. The cannibals were getting closer. Sarah quickly used an iron rod to make a hole and managed to crawl out through the opening. But just as she was about to climb through, the snow suddenly buried the exit, and she had to retreat. She was pierced by Sawtooth's electric drill. The others fled, but the three brothers chased them down on motorcycles, surrounding them. Kenya then had an idea: run into the forest, but Sarah had a breakdown. "I lost my iron rod," she insisted, unwilling to leave without it. So she went back to find it. Meanwhile, the cannibals attacked the remaining two. Sawtooth took one girl, and One Eye injured Kenya from behind. But Sawtooth stumbled over a branch and knocked himself out. One Eye, seeing this, ran over and crushed the girl with the motorcycle, using the rear wheel to deal with her. As time passed, morning broke. Lauren, who had gone out for help, was frozen into an ice sculpture. Kenya was still running, and One Eye suddenly appeared behind her, charging at her. But Sarah, from the shadows, knocked him out. The two of them took the motorcycle and escaped. But in their joy of survival, they accidentally ran into a trap set by Three Finger, cutting off their heads. With that, Three Finger, Sawtooth, and One Eye returned to their home.